good pleasure. There was nothing that was contrary to that. Number 3 on your note taker. Everything God created has a function or purpose. And that is absolutely true. In fact, your function kind of informs your purpose. It tells you why God made you. Everyone's purpose in this world is directly tied to the image of God. And it answers those great existential questions. You know, you hear this, the philosophers, someone's trying to repeat that stuff and they go, who am I? And why am I here? You know what that really is? I mean, really, I've made fun of that in the past, but, just to be serious about it for a moment, men have always kind of wondered, is there some purpose behind me being here? Or is this just a random thing that has no meaning whatsoever? And so when you ask those questions about who am I, we're going to answer that question today. And why are we here? We're going to answer that question today. Those really are good questions. But let me tell you that if evolution is true, if special creation did not happen and evolution is true, then there is no reason that we are here. We're just a happy accident. And that means that and that science, and by the way, when a society turns secular, when it turns away from God and it begins to say, we just want to see the science. That's a mantra we've heard over the last couple of years. We just want to see the science. Well, you know what most of those guys are doing? They're saying the science is we're nothing more than the result of evolution, time and chance. There is no design here. There is no overarching purpose. There is nothing here except it just happened to line up that way. Well, you know what? If that's true, then here's the answer to those two questions. Who are you? Nobody. And why are you here? Doesn't matter. There is no reason for you to be here. You just happen to be in the way. So if that's the way you live life, good luck with that. Because that's a terrible way to live. Let me show you a quote from Bertrand Russell. Those of you that understand about those philosophies of life that come from that. Bertrand Russell said this: we are the product of causes that had no prevision of the end they were achieving. The hopes, fears, loves, and beliefs of our minds are just the outcome of the accidental collocation, which is or connection of atoms. You understand what he was saying there? There's no purpose for you being here. I'm going to tell you today there is an absolute purpose, and it is the purpose of purposes. Now, I've never heard anybody call the image of God that before, but to me, we always talk about King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Well, this is the purpose of purposes. But this is what happens when you push God out and you just turn to your science. And so that kind of sums up secular humanism. So in a secular society, here's what all the therapists do. The therapists tell you how wonderful you are and how important you are and how much your life has meaning and what a valuable human being you are. And then they go from the therapy session to the science class and prove that you are nothing more than an animal that just happened to show up by accident. And so what's really funny to me, and I think this is kind of the joke of it, is that in a secular society, like what is happening in this country right now, you have a bunch of people screaming for rights. We want our rights. and we demand our rights. And that, and so so when someone says that, you know what? Here's the question to ask. When someone says, we demand our rights, and by the way, with those rights I'm talking about, included with that is, and certain protections, so rights and protections. Okay, so let me ask you a question. On what basis do you deserve those rights? This is an important question. On what basis do you deserve that? Because if you're just a happy accident and you're nothing more than that, and I didn't give you all these quotes, I could have given you a ton of them, but you're really, really intrinsically you may be more complex scientifically, but you're not really anything substantially or inherently or intrinsically more than a chimpanzee or a grain of sand on the beach. You just happened to show up. So on what basis do you deserve these rights? Now, I don't want to get into this, but when I say I don't want to get into it, I mean I don't want to spend a long time on it. But there was a professor, and I believe that he was at Cornell University. It's not in these notes. Again, I'm trying to kind of narrow the focus of what we're trying to get done today. But he went back to say, where did this idea of human rights come from? Where did that originally come from? And you know what he discovered in his research? And you can actually purchase his paper. It's about 100 pages long, which you realize is not even as big as the books that you get, and it's $80. So if you want to go grab that, feel free. But let me just sum it up for you about what's in there. He said that what he found that in this culture, this Western culture, is that human rights came from biblical principles entering into the European justice system and all of its cultural forms, that all men were made in the image of God, and that is what made them worthy of those rights. That's a remarkable thing. And when you think about what was going on in the Roman Empire, and again, I don't want to get too far off base with this, but when you talk about infanticide, girl babies being left out just to die from the elements, the kinds of things that were going on in that society that would just shock us. We think it is beyond the pale here, but all you have to do is look back in history and realize it has been far worse. It's worse in other places in the world, but it has been far worse before. When I hear people say, surely the coming Lord must be near, look how bad it is, I know too much about history to think this is worse than it's ever been. It's not. And so, and by the way, so that's not a good basis for trying to determine that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that in the midst of that, it was the Christians who came in who were against all of that and began to make that change because of what they understood from the Bible. And a big part of that was the issue that we were made in the image of God. And so when someone comes in and says, hey, you know what, our rights are being trampled on, I want to say, on what basis do you have those rights? Now, the world does have an answer for that. I am going to show you that answer today. This was difficult for me. I'm not saying that to make you feel sorry for me, because you don't. But I know that's an exercise in futility. But this is difficult for me because there were so many things that I wanted to talk about in a limited time to say them. And so I wrote this, and then I completely rewrote it, and then I threw half of that out and replaced that with something else. And so I hope I've got everything in here that we'll need today. But look, if we're nothing more, you just have to follow the logic here. This is what Solomon's wisdom enabled him to do when he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, is to take this human worldly philosophy of life and then follow it to its conclusion. In other words, if this is the way you think, that is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this, when in the end is going to wind up here, and he takes every philosophy of life and lays it out for you and shows you that all of them are vanity. All of them are empty at the end. There's no fulfillment. There's no reality. There's no substance to any of that. And by the way, you know what that is? Because you are made in the image of God, which means you have a function and a purpose. It is the purpose you were created for. It was the function that you were designed to do just because you were created in the image of God. And if you don't do that one, you will spend your whole life looking for another one. You'll spend your whole life with one of these world philosophies, and you know what? So you're going to discover at the end what Solomon already told you. It's empty. Not going to do what you think it's going to do. But men do that. So they think if I amass a lot of riches, that will make me happy. You know what? Wealthy people are some of the most miserable people in the world. They just have different sets of problems. Someone says, "Oh, I'm going to achieve power. I'm going to be an influencer." Okay. Well, look, I don't want to get off into all of that, but here's my question: if we're all truly just evolved animals, and by the way, if you don't believe in God, then you have to believe that we're just a product of evolution. And if we are, and then let me ask you, would it be wrong for someone to come along and find you and put you in a zoo? Would that be okay? If we get some segment of our society and we put them in a zoo. That way folks can go by and look at them. Now, if you did that, I promise you, if the state of Texas were to go get 25 families and then build a habitat and encage them and put them in there and feed them every day and give them all the things, and then we could all just kind of walk by, see them out in the yard doing whatever they're doing or whatever. You know what? People of every ilk would just be up in arms over that. So I'm going to ask you, if you're really nothing more than an animal, why are you so upset about that? What would be the difference? We did it to, you know what? We did it to birds. We did it to fish. We did it to land animals. We're just doing it to another animal. You know what? And that was the other thing that I was going to say. The secularist, you know, he gets all upset when the rights of some group is being trampled, and then he goes off into the science class to prove that they're really nothing but animals and the product of evolution. You understand, if that is true, you have no basis for rights. You have lost the basis for rights. So secularists want it both ways. We don't want God, and we don't want anything to do with that, but we want the rights that come with being made in His image. Sorry, can't have it both ways. So there's an interesting thing about this. We're not here without a purpose. And I'm going to say it this way for now, and I'll explain it in a minute. Your purpose is in your DNA. Did you hear that? Your purpose is in your DNA. Now you say, but you're just, that, not really. Yeah, really. I'll explain that in just a minute. Because our purpose is exactly who we are. And you realize that a person without purpose, that's a terrible way to live. A person who has no purpose is someone that has no direction. And if you are ignorant, listen, I'm going to tell it to you today so you can't plead ignorance. And there's no one listening to me that would plead that ignorance anyway, I don't think. But ignorance of our God-given purpose will result in one of two things. It will either send us looking for our purpose somewhere else, because it is in our DNA. It's so much a part of who we are. We are looking for something to invest ourselves in that gives us worth and dignity and purpose, that causes us to have some measure of respect. And we're naturally gravitating toward that. That's not an accident. It's because you were designed with purpose in your DNA. And so if you don't do the purpose that God created you for, you will naturally try to go find it somewhere else. You know what? You'll find it in your work. Do you ever look at someone that is neglecting everything else in their life but not their work? Because that's where they find their purpose. Or it's in their achievements. What I'm able to do. Philanthropists get buildings named after them because they donate huge sums of money, or they involve themselves in some kind of work. Or you know what? Let me accumulate wealth so I can have great comfort. And I'm going to provide comfort for everybody. And that's going to be my purpose. Or let me just gather riches so that we don't have to worry about some adversity coming along and putting us in a difficult... So ignorance, look, I'm going to say it this way. If you are ignorant of what your purpose is, the purpose you were created for, then the first thing that's going to do is that is going to drive you to the counterfeit. And I'm calling it that because these are all empty sacks. You can invest your life in them and spend your whole life working toward them, but at the end, when it's over, you won't really have anything. You can accumulate billions, but at the end of your life, guess how much you're taking with you? None. So you can either, but you're going to find a purpose. So let me just say it that way. So it's the counterfeit purpose. Now, to men, those are noble. Some of these are well-intentioned and noble. I get that. But they're not what you were created to do. Or if you are ignorant of your God-given purpose, you just don't know what it is, or you know what it is, but you're not interested in that, then here's the second thing. You will either go find a purpose. Follow me, this is really important. You will either go find a purpose, or you will determine life is not worth living. That's where no purpose takes you. And all you have to do is look up the statistics of how many people have gotten to the place where they have given up on life. That doesn't mean, by the way, that everybody takes their life. There's plenty of that too, unfortunately. But have you ever seen where someone has just given up on life? They don't care anymore. If you watch TV much, you'll see that in one of those situations where there's always this guy, you know what, some tragedy happened, it gutted him, and he never recovered. And you know what? He lives in a pigsty. He's totally disheveled. He has the regimen of cleanliness or health. He doesn't care about relationships. He's brusque and rude with people. And you know what he's done? He has given up because he's in this group. Life is not worth living. There was another guy that made a quote. He said, all war is a waste of life, and all life is a waste of time. That was a secular humanist that said that. Not a Christian, a secular humanist. How would you like to live in that world? This is the one Satan is preparing. This is the secular world that doesn't have a place for God in it. But listen, you have to understand, this is an empty sack at the end after you've put your whole life in and deposited over and over. When you open it up at the end, it's just got a hole in the bottom and you've lost it all. And people get to the end of their rope and they just say, it's not worth living. And if you ever watch those movies or watch those shows, in this guy, and this guy that's just given up on life, you know what happens? If he gets redeemed, it's because he finds a purpose. I'm going to show you the purpose of purposes. It is the reason that you are here. And it is the greatest privilege you will ever engage in.